breaking news, American politicians are idiots and getting more idiot-er. I'm Steve Green, and on Trifecta, we're going to spend the week answering the question no one else would dare. Why are our politicians so stupid? This isn't about policy or platforms or partisanship. This is just about demonstrably stupid people somehow rising to the top. So I would like to bring on my good friends and dear colleagues Bill Whittle and Scott Akin and get an answer to the question which keeps me awake at night. During the day, makes me want to drink until I pass out. And that is, why are American politicians such idiots? Gents, I want to repeat this. This is not about left or right or Democrat or Republican. This is about what happens when American politicians go off the script and have to say what they really think, if they're able to think, that is. For example, let's go to the smartest man in any room a couple of years ago when his teleprompter broke down.
What they'll say is, well, it costs too much money, but you know what? It would cost about the same as what we would spend over the course of 10 years. It would cost what it would cost us. All right. Okay. We're going to. It would cost us about the same as it would cost for about, hold on one second, I can't hear myself.
That's the first time that ever happened. To be fair, both President Bushes, they could barely function with a teleprompter, and Bill Clinton once gave an entire State of the Union address without a teleprompter, doing it from memory when his broke. So this is a more recent phenomenon, I think. And just to prove to you that this isn't partisan, let's go to perhaps the stupidest moment in recent American politics, Missouri's GOP Senate candidate Todd Akin from 2012.
If an abortion could be considered in a case of, say, a tubal pregnancy or something like that, what about in the case of rape? Should it be legal or not?
Well, you know, people always want to try and make that as one of those things. Well, how do you slice this particularly tough sort of ethical question? It seems to me, first of all, from what I understand from doctors, that's really rare. If it's a legitimate rape, the female body has ways to try to shut that whole thing down.
Wow. Scott, no matter what anybody thinks of Akin's position on abortion, he went off the script there to an easy question in a friendly environment, and as a result, he threw away the most winnable Senate seat for the GOP in 2012. What happened? I know you're a student of history. What happened to politicians who could actually think on their feet?
Well, you know, everything in the whole political game these days, and I don't know how it was before our time, I just know how it is now. Everything in the whole game is, it sort of fights against the idea of having somebody who's intelligent and can think on their feet. You know, as I looked at that clip of President Obama, then, you know, I think he was then Senator Obama, running for office, I thought, how many times have I been in that position? You ever get out there and you're talking about something and then all of a sudden you just lose the train? Well, at that point, you just need to shut up. You know, it's just time to sit down. But I don't think he really believed that he could have lost the train and it had to be here somewhere. And so he just kept looking around the roundhouse, seeing if he could find it. And there's just no excuse for what Akin said. However, I will say one thing. I think the comparison is unfair because a babbling idiot that you first showed wins. The second babbling idiot loses. And I think we need to compare winners to winners when we're doing a party-to-party comparison.
All right, that's fair. I take that correction, Scott. All right, next up, Congressman Hank Johnson. Well, you probably have seen this one before. He's worried about Guam.
Yeah, my fear is that the whole island will become so overly populated that it will tip over and capsize.
We don't anticipate that.
We don't anticipate that. That admiral keeping his cool in the face of that. Awesome guy. Bill, some of these guys are idiots even when they do have a script. If you're a staffer, if you're a Hank Johnson staffer, how do you let your guy or gal go out to a hearing with notes like those? I mean, he was prepared in this case.
Oh, no, you got it exactly backwards. First of all, I just have to say, if you ever needed better evidence of the magnificence of civilian rule over the military, you're never going to surpass that clip. I mean, here's a guy who's probably, that admiral's probably got 3 PhDs. He's probably got a PhD in nuclear engineering. He's probably gone around the world and, commanded a carrier battle group or nuclear sub or something like this. And he's talking to an elected official who's worried about an island capsizing. And look, who clearly believes that islands float on the surface of the ocean. And he didn't just, he just said, well, sir, we don't anticipate that happening on account of, geology and stuff. The point I think you're trying to make is how does a staffer let an idiot go out like that unprepared? But I think that's exactly backwards. First of all, I think the staffers are probably dumber than the politicians, and I think the staffers are at this point. It's like, do you believe this guy got elected? It's all kind of like, okay, this is not like, hey, people may catch on to how dumb he is. I think it's more of a question of this guy's the dumbest guy since a bag of hammers, and I'm getting a check from him. You can't protect people from that kind of stupid, is what I'm trying to say, Steve. That's ultimately what it comes down to. If you don't know that an island is not floating on the surface of the sea, and I don't remember, it was Maxine Waters or somebody who said, well, we put the flag on Mars. I don't know why we can't. You can't fix stupid.
And from what you were saying, you believe we brought this on ourselves. Maybe you're right. Now, folks, I've been showing you extreme cases, sure, and there are exceptions, maybe even lots of exceptions. But then, when you look at a vacant-eyed bobblehead like Nancy Pelosi having once been 2 heartbeats away from the presidency, and Joe Biden still being 1 heartbeat away, assuming he could, put on his pants frontwards long enough to recite the oath of office, and you begin to realize there's something deeply wrong when the smart politicians are trapped in the middle ranks at best, while the idiots, like some sort of demented cream, rise to the top. But we'll get to that in parts 2 and 3 later this week, so stay tuned. For Bill Whittle and Scott Ott, I'm Steve Green.